Hey guys, welcome to Fantasy Sports Talk. I'm Kevin Pate,
I'm Blake Bagwell.
and we're going to give you the Week 6 tight end segment right here, where we're going to pick a few guys we like it's the bye week, so maybe your number one's not playing this week. Well, we're going to give you a few guys that are out there on the waiver wire that maybe you should look at targeting. And also, make sure you stick around for the whole segment because we're going to give you trade scenarios for the number one tight end in the game.
Dun, dun, dun. I'll jump right in to some guys I like. And he may not be available on the waiver wire, but I know in my league a lot of guys are getting really low on him and have dropped him. And I think is a guy that's interesting to pick up, especially this week against the Bills, and that's Tyler Eifert out in Cincinnati. I really like this young kid. I liked him early in the season. He hasn't seen huge production, but I just really like him. He's just a big-bodied guy going up against a very weak Bills team.
Right.
And I just really...
Why wouldn't you like him?
Yeah, right? He's going against the Bills. I think he would be a perfect bye-week tight end to slide in.
Right, absolutely. All right, who else you got?
The other guy I like, same kind of thing, a weak defense. We got Heath Miller
Okay.
going up against the New York Jets. We saw what Tony Gonzalez did in a losing effort to that New York Jets defense. And there's no reason to believe that Heath Miller can't step in and do the same thing. Similar guys. Heath Miller definitely not quite the Tony Gonzalez level, but a veteran, big-bodied guy.
And Ben Roethlisberger not quite at the Matt Ryan level when it comes to quarterbacking.
No, but lately he's been slinging it. You don't like that?
He's a good guy to have for this bye week.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess I don't want people to cling on to the Heath Miller that was there 2 to 3 years ago because I think he's done. I think that level of production is done. I
love the matchup.
Even I'm sort of hesitant on the Heath Miller start just because, the Jets had some injuries last week. Miller will be back in the secondary. I think that defense gets a little stronger this week.
Right.
Plus, they're playing at the Georgia Dome last week, one of the hardest places to play at. I don't know. The Heath Miller one, I'm kind of on the fence on.
I like Heath Miller. I understand what you're saying. He's the older guy.
And like
very
I said,
consistent. Not a guy I want on my starting lineup week in, week out. This week, I'm on a bye. Greg Olsen is limping around all of a sudden, making me a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I would feel totally fine slipping Heath Miller in against that Jets defense.
I kind of went a different direction.
Okay.
With my tight ends, I was thinking about guys who don't have any good tight end play right now.
Right.
So maybe you guys are slinging around Fred Davis, who's done nothing in Washington.
Right.
Guys like that. So I went with guys who I think are going to improve their stock as the season goes on. One of those guys is Brandon Pettigrew out in Detroit.
Okay.
I was looking at his stats. He's getting some targets. He's getting some looks.
Right.
He's getting some receptions. He doesn't have any touchdowns.
Yeah.
A big-bodied guy like that with Matt Stafford slinging you the football in the red zone, I think it's only a matter of time before he does start pulling in red zone targets.
Okay with that pick. I don't love Brandon Pettigrew at all.
I don't love him. I really do like.
I think he's a too big-bodied guy.
That's just being mean. That's just being mean to Brandon Pettigrew.
Well,
apologize to him. He might be watching this.
Brandon Pettigrew, I'm not dissing you in any way because I'm sure you would destroy me. But my point is, he's not even the only tight end that's been getting production in Detroit, and also he lacks a little bit of that dynamic play that like a Vernon Davis or some of those bigger speed guys.
But that's not what Brandon Pettigrew does,
and that's fine. But he hasn't done a lot of anything yet.
He's getting the targets. He's getting the receptions.
Right.
He just hasn't had the touchdowns yet.
3 receptions.
No, he's getting about 5 to 6 fantasy points. Not a lot.
Right.
And I definitely think he can do more.
Okay.
And I just like going forward.
Yeah.
He has no touchdowns through 5 weeks. He's gonna get touchdowns. He's a fantastic talent, whether you like him or not. You think he's an okay pick. I think he's a great pick.
That's fine. He's definitely a guy on the waiver wire because I think a lot of people are on my side about this. But a guy, like you said, if you're struggling at tight end, as I know a lot of people are, because pretty much you get the top 3, 4 tight ends,
been spotted in a walking boot,
or you do nothing. So check him out. I don't like him. I'd much rather have Heath Miller in there against the Jets. But that's just my opinion.
My second pick goes against you. Like, you go one way with the tight end, I go a different way.
Yeah.
But I like him for the same reason I like Brandon Pettigrew, and that's Jermaine Gresham. Now, I know you have Tyler Eifert there.
Yeah.
And I love Tyler Eifert. I love his potential. I think Jermaine Gresham right now, where he is in his career, I think he's a little bit better. I think he's got a little bit more rapport with Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
I think, he's a proven veteran there on the staff. Again, like Brandon Pettigrew, no touchdowns. He's a big-bodied guy. I know that Tyler Eifert's getting a lot of looks,
Yeah.
but if I'm in the red zone and I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I want the ball in Gresham's hands. If I had to pick between the two, I want Gresham.
The thing I like about Eifert is I feel like he can stretch the field a little bit more.
Right.
He may be able to vulture some touchdowns. He hasn't yet. But I think a lot of Cincinnati's scoring, especially as much as they've struggled up to this point, has been from outside the red zone, stretching it to some of their more big play guys. And I think Eifert is a guy that can slip in there.
I guess I
and
just
get the
like
bigger play.
I guess I just like Andy Dalton and company to
Yeah.
get more red zone opportunities, and I like Gresham in the red zone. So I think he's another guy you can look at to pick up.
Definitely got to look at.
All right, we promised you if you stuck
Yeah.
around, we would give you one tight end, the number one tight end, to work out a trade if you have him.
Arguably a number one wide receiver. Like, this guy
Yeah.
is a freak.
We're talking about Jimmy Graham. You might not have him. You might have him. I'm gonna go over a trade. He'll go over a trade about what you should look at trading or getting if you have Jimmy Graham. Now, I'm not gonna lie, running back play has been terrible. So is the tight end. Jimmy Graham's number one tight end of the game. I think right now you can have Jimmy Graham. You can sell super high on Jimmy Graham and buy just guys penny on the dollar for him.
Yeah.
I'm seeing like
Tell me what you
two
think.
bottom end. I'm seeing two bottom end running backs for him.
Okay.
Well, not bottom end, but like guys who haven't been producing.
Some of
like,
these guys that we were talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
Reese Jones-Drew or Chris Johnson, and then you throw in a quarterback like Colin Kaepernick who hasn't been playing well for a guy who's been doing great like
Okay.
Jimmy Graham. If you need to, and then if you need a tight end, I promise you, one of these four guys is going to be available on the waiver
Yeah.
wire in your league. And so what I'm thinking you get here is you're buying low on some running backs, who's arguably the most important position in fantasy
For
football.
sure. We both
And
said it.
tight end is just kind of an extra added flavor
Yeah.
to have. So if you have Jimmy Graham, maybe you're sitting there 1-4, 0-5, 2-3. You feel like you need a little extra spark. I pull that trade for two bottom end running backs I've been producing, and for a quarterback like Colin Kaepernick, who I think as soon as they start using the read option more, he's going to start getting better. Frank Gore started to roll.
Feel you.
I really like that trade. I think it also it benefits the person. It benefits both parties.
Do you want to know what I think?
I'd love to know what you think.
Do not trade Jimmy Graham. I'm sorry. I see what you're saying when you're talking about tight end being the extra, the added value, and 99% of it for everyone in this league except Jimmy Graham, that is true. Jimmy Graham is a game-changing player. It's like having a third wide receiver slot. It's like having you could plug in one of these guys that you like at tight end and put Jimmy Graham in the flex. He's the number one tight end, but he's not barely the number one tight end. He's the number one scoring tight end by like almost 50 points.
Okay, well I understand that.
He
though,
is
but
a monster right
okay,
now.
that's,
Why on earth would you trade him for?
I don't know, because right now you can have Julius Thomas who's doing the same thing. Rob Gronkowski coming back this week.
Who?
Jordan Cameron's been doing great.
No. If you have
there's-
those guys on your bench, by all means. But if you have a Jimmy Graham, you probably don't have Jordan Cameron. You probably don't have Julius Thomas. And if you do, awesome. Now I have Julius Thomas as my tight end, Jimmy Graham as my flex
You mentioned
player.
him as being a number 3 wide receiver. I don't know. I just feel like with Jimmy Graham right now, he is the flavor for the week because he is doing so well at tight end. Like I
He is
feel
not
like
a flavor of the week,
I
the flavor
do.
of the season.
I feel like people right now look at Jimmy
Jimmy
Graham's total
Graham.
points and they say, "Oh wow, it's a guy I have to
But
have."
it's not
It's a
total
nice-
points
he's a
because
very
he
nice-
had one big week.
No, I understand
It's
that,
because he is consistently
and I get that,
making plays.
and I get that. But what I'm saying is, I don't ever build my team around a tight end.
No one does.
Okay, so I feel like you've got Jimmy Graham. You spend a number 1 or a number 2 pick on Jimmy Graham, and right now I'm saying you can trade Jimmy Graham for what would have been 2 number 1 picks and like a number 6 pick at the beginning of the season. I do that trade every single time. I love these guys that I mentioned earlier. If I could trade Jimmy Graham for Ray Rice and C.J. Spiller with Colin Kaepernick, you don't do that trade?
Who has C.J. Spiller and Ray Rice on their team that's willing to give them up for a tight end spot?
Okay, fair enough.
That's
About
my.
Ray Rice and Reese Jones-Drew, Ray Rice, Chris Johnson, Alfred Morris, Chris Johnson. What about that?
I mean, maybe, but only if you are just, you haven't won a game yet because Jimmy Graham is literally your only player. But if I have serviceable backs, wide receivers are so deep, we can put somebody in there. I just don't see what kind of return you could get from
Okay.
a player that is just completely dominating his position.
You-
We talk about Calvin Johnson being the number 1 wide receiver.
I feel like that's the same kind of way.
No, because
Like, it's the same
he's not
kind of way.
even the highest scoring wide receiver. And if he is, it's
Hey,
barely.
Okay,
There's
hey,
4 other guys.
you
can
know
put
what?
right
Let's just
there.
open this up to the floor. We'll let you guys debate this.
Don't trade Jimmy Graham.
If you can get a good return for Jimmy Graham, you trade him.
Yeah, if somebody wants to say, okay, I'll give you AP and Peyton Manning, pull that trigger. But I'm just saying.
You're ridiculous. We're going to let you open it up. Thanks for listening to our tight end segment. Check us out. We're going to go defense and kickers next.